it's not for autism. The U.S. agency said the drug helps children and adults who cannot get enough folate into the brain. At a White House news conference in September, President Trump said the drug was under review for approval in patients with autism. However, FDA officials say they narrowed the review to the strongest evidence, and that evidence supports use only in patients with a specific genetic mutation. John Scott reporting.
A Chaldean Catholic bishop has resigned after he was arrested while trying to leave the U.S. following accusations he embezzled $270,000 from his parish near San Diego. The resignation was announced after Bishop Emmanuel Shaletta was charged with money laundering. News and analysis at townhall.com. From Washington, I'm Keith Peters.
This True Sand commentary is brought to you by Ability Tree Experts.
Ability Tree Experts, Houston's leading tree care professionals. Call 281-441-4179.
Dan Patrick for my friend Louis Flory and Ability Tree Experts.
Spring is here and summer just around the corner, which means it's time to deep root fertilize your trees in addition to spraying for insects and disease. Let Ability Trees help maintain their value and repair all damage. Fed and pruned tree will be less susceptible to wind damage and uprooting. Caring for the beautiful and valuable trees on your property that you can't replace should be done by experts. And the experts I use, it's very clear. It's Ability Tree Experts and Louis Flory, my friend for over 40 years. Gosh, this guy is the pro when it comes to taking care of trees. You know, pruning is important for the health of your trees, and pruning limits resistance to spring storms and allows the sun and fresh air into the canopy. Trees can be in distress several months without showing any signs, so don't wait to protect your investment at 281-441-4179, 281-441-4179, or visit their website at abilitytrees.com. Right now, Ability Trees is giving a deep root feeding with every tree prune. Ability Trees, Houston's leading tree care professional.
We got a call late New Year's Eve. A dad's garage door spring just snapped. He had big plans the next day and didn't know what to do. Hi, I'm Tommy Mello, owner of Garage Door Doctor. When you need help, we're the ones who show up. From repairs to upgrades, call Garage Door Doctor.
Tune in each Sunday morning at 9 a.m. for On the Money with your host and CEO of Allied Wealth Texas, Ryan Wheelis, who can help you live your richest life possible during your retirement years. That's each Sunday at 9 a.m. right here on AM 700 KSEV.
Confidence is knowing you're ready to handle whatever comes your way. That's what it feels like to take on your workday with Cintas. They make sure your AEDs are up to date, your fire extinguishers are tested and inspected, your floor mats are cleaned and delivered, and your workwear looks good, feels good, and is freshly laundered with the Cintas Apparel Plus program. So are you ready to take on today? Visit Cintas.com and get ready for the workday.
Where should I begin?
Can we talk about this?
Say, what are you trying to say?
Beyond the usual controversial talk.
Blah, 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 on and on and on.
Over there. No.
1, 2, cha-cha-cha. 1, 2, cha-cha-cha.
Prepare yourself.
Okay.
For Craig.
Okay.
Preparing a mighty new spectacle here.
Articulate. Stimulate. You right in the... there you go.
We start becoming a team right now.
This is the Craig Collins Show.
Lord Jesus. Oh, Lord, no.
Start talking. Talk fast.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
Now your host.
He's a good man.
Craig.
That's right. It is the Craig Collins Show live. KSEV, KGBC, the voice of Texas. We do a whole nother hour here live for you every single night now. And it's night 2, which means it's going to be much easier. I'm not going to try as hard to break the things that I was breaking last night. And I definitely want to talk about a lot of valuable political stuff. And actually, honestly, there's a thing that happened to me on social media that's politically relevant that I'm sort of obsessed with, and I've been obsessed with the last 24 hours. So I'm definitely going to discuss that. You can be a part of this show if you want. I'm doing a lot of things all at once, so it's not exactly easy. But you know how to call in. You know how to be a part of it. I'll give out the phone number in a little bit. And if you want to jump in, be my guest over the next hour. We'll do the best we can. But before I do any of that, I do want to talk quickly about the rodeo. You actually have heard probably on some other shows, Chris X's show, of course, but I've popped in some other things and done some. Oh, look at this. You got Senator Paul Bettencourt walking into studio to say hi to me. Now, here, the only problem with this is you're going to have to sit at this microphone so I can go turn on another microphone if you want to talk.
Don't worry about it. I'm just here to just say hi and, just that, this is a huge, news show. It's just really huge. I don't know how huge it is, but he's really a huge guy. Well, actually, I'm huger, but what? Yeah, right.
You're definitely huger here in Texas. Here, no, you should sit down. You talk for a second. I'm going to turn on another mic.
No. I actually.
You really have to go?
I have to go right down the hall to do a.
Okay.
I got to do a property tax Zoom with a big group.
Gotcha. Okay. All right.
A big group that's called me in, so
That's fine.
I'm their virtual dinner speaker.
Yeah. By the way, Chris X is very confused as to how I produce the show in that room and then host it in this room. You are now seeing this done, correct?
I'm seeing this done because, live long and prosper, nanu.
There you go. Yeah.
Like, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
All the technology. Oh, by the way, we're posting an Amigos video. It is a clips version of one of the interviews you guys did on Friday tomorrow morning.
Okay.
It'll be up on social media tomorrow morning.
Derek Ryan.
That is the one.
Good, because I need to boost it.
Yes, it's going to be up tomorrow morning.
For them, they need to know. Here's what it is. But hey, where's it's up here?
It's right there. Yeah.
What we're talking about is the state Democrats outpolled the Republicans 2.3 million to 2.15. So we're going to have a lot of good data that Craig is clipped for us in an interview with Derek Ryan about what that means for November. So look for a post from Uncle Paul.
Yes.
From
KSEV Radio, and then Uncle Paul will share and push it everywhere.
Yes, from there.
And it's going to be everywhere. And by the way, the best part about that interview is how unworried Derek Ryan seemed in those numbers, because they seem worse than they are for conservatives here in Texas. That's the simplified way to say it.
I know the numbers, too.
Yes, actually, that is true. I was impressed with that. Senator Paul Bettencourt knew the numbers off the top of his head as his data analyst guy was in Nanu. As his data analyst guy was... No, thank you. I appreciate that. That was awesome. And now I realize that if I do ever have another surprise guest, I have to figure out a way to turn on another microphone remotely, which, if Chris X is listening, is not easy to do. That is very, very difficult to do. But anyway, here's the thing. I wanted to give a shout-out to the rodeo at the start of the show. They allowed me to have a press pass for the entirety of this thing. I actually sent them an email. I'm new to Texas. I would like to cover the rodeo for our station, which we haven't done it in a few years. There's some other stations that are more involved with the rodeo now than we are. And I'm a fish out of water, being a guy that lived in Chicago from the East Coast that has never been to a rodeo in my life. And they have been nothing but accommodating. They have let me have access to whatever I want. I've done on the man on the street stuff there. And the people are very nice. The rodeo is impressively put together. So this is my pitch to you, to the KSEV audience. If you haven't been to the rodeo in a few years, if you think you've seen it all, it's the same thing all the time, you should still go. And the biggest reason you should still go is there's going to be a couple little things that you notice that are different, that I don't notice, that everybody around me tells me. They're like, oh, man, they changed this. Oh, they did this better. But then also just I think the pageantry, which is a weird word to say, but I think that that's accurate. And then also just the commitment that they have. I love the people who are anchoring this thing. The rodeo casters, or whatever you want to call them. I like the people who are down on the floor of the rodeo getting the interviews, especially after the mutton busting, which Senator Bettencourt, in his things that you have to do when you go to the rodeo, the do's and don'ts, which is a video that is up at ksevradio.com and all the other places. That was one of his big things that he said. Mutton busting is popular, and it is. My wife loves it. But this is just a long-form shout-out to the rodeo and to how kind they've been to me, but also how great of an experience it's been to actually get to be a part of this year's rodeo, the 20. And honestly, this week, starting tomorrow, but tonight, I'm going to go ahead and assume that the country singer tonight is quite good. But every show this week seems like the quality of the performer has gone up. They had Rascal Flatts last week, but it's Creed, which I like. It's Chris Stapleton. It's Kelly Clarkson, famous for a lot of things, including being a coach on The Voice. So I think there's a lot of big shows. So now's the right week to go, by the way, to the rodeo. All right, this is the last thing I want to do. We'll take a break after this. We'll come back and we'll play some Dan Bongino audio. It is a commitment I'm making to this radio show, to this radio station, to air some of the things that only exist in digital. That means only exist on podcast or YouTube or Rumble or somewhere, because I think that there's a value to those conversations and those voices here on the radio with you, the KSEV radio audience. And I think it's a shame that some of that stuff isn't rebuilt like it used to be for this platform. And I do think there's a way to meld it all together, and I'm going to try to do it, and that's a big point of what this show will be. I didn't really explain that yesterday, but wanted to go ahead and explain that today, that will be a big goal, playing Bongino and Kelly, Megyn Kelly audio, and a bunch. You might not even agree with them, by the way. I don't agree with everything they're going to say, but that's not the point. The point is allowing them to be the conduit to our conversation, me and you, about all the stuff that's going on. But this is the thing I want to mention. So last night I got home. I got home very late, actually. There was a lot of stuff I still had to do after the show was over, so uniquely late. The wife was not thrilled, although I'm sure I'll figure out how to make that a little bit better. And then I logged into my Facebook, and I saw what I thought was a stupid, stupid post from a guy that I know in Chicago that I used to work with in radio that's definitely a far lefty. And I'll tell you what the post is. And a lot of you listening, you might actually think the post is no big deal. Like, you agree with it. Fine, blame conservatives for this, whatever. I think there's a bigger reason that it mattered to me. But essentially the post was, and I think a lot of people are sharing the same thing right now, if AOC is just a bartender, then is Mark Wayne Mullen just a plumber? Both their previous careers. And so I responded. The thing I said was, when was the last time you heard a notable conservative call AOC just a bartender? That doesn't mean we think she's smart. She's an idiot. Her ideas are terrible. Unfortunately, and for the last several years, she has not been just a bartender. She has been a politician, a valuable one in, Congress, and someone who is influencing a lot of Democrats to be as dumb as she is. These are all things I wanted to say, but I didn't say them. I just said, when was the last time you heard this? And I loved the response back I got from the guy, because he goes, it doesn't matter when I heard it last. All that matters is that Republicans think this, and they're bad people, or something. I think there was worse language I used there. And here's the reason I wanted to talk about this, or open the show with a small bit of a tirade on this topic, is it's so interesting to see the psyop that exists in our society and how easily it's used, mostly on the left, occasionally on the right, to convince people of how terrible the other human being is. Not the politicians. They are wild pieces of crap. Outside of Senator Bettencourt, he's awesome. He came in today. He's one of the nicest guys I've met since I moved here to Texas. But I will say that a lot of those politicians that go to Washington, D.C. all the time, by and large, even a lot of the Republicans, even though I would vote them into office again and again and again, are pieces of crap. That's how I would describe them. There are exceptions to the rule, but there's a lot of people who are more about themselves than about anyone else, that it just matters, what's in it for me? What are you going to do for me? How does this help me? And so, no fan of any of those people. But the sentiment of the post on social media was to attack me, the person who is supposedly crapping all over, I want to say a much worse word, crapping all over AOC and disrespecting her current position and saying that she's just a bartender, even though I wish she was just a bartender. And that's designed to make you hate me, to make that, liberal. And I think the guy actually wound up blocking me. I've been friends with him for years. We barely interact on social media. It's not like we're friends in real life anymore. But I worked with him at one point, so it's one of those friendships that just kind of stays on social media. And I think it's officially over because I asked a simple question. When's the last time you heard a notable person say this thing you're saying? And by the way, they couch all that in racism and sexism. They say that this proves that MAGA is racist and sexist because we constantly disparage AOC as a bartender and not just an idiot, which is the thing she actually is, regardless of what job she had before Congress. But again, I just want to say this. We need to find a way to not hate each other. And it's not because I want to kumbaya you. And I think Bongino will talk about this in a second in the audio I'm going to play. I'm not trying to say we all need to just get along and be friends and get together and get under the trust tree and do the group hug. That's not the point. The point is, if you go in hating me because you think that I'm politically different than you, and I probably am for these lefties and these morons, you can't even talk to me. You can't even you'll block me on social media when I ask you a simple question. I say, hey, when's the last time you heard this said? And that's, this terrible person, this horrible piece of crap. That's a design. And you know it. I bet you a lot of the people listening are like, yeah, duh, I've known this for a while. It's just so annoying to watch it still be successful on the left, to watch these idiots still dive into that narrative to where they accuse me, whatever it is. And by the way, I left one thing out, and I'll say this last thing, and then I'll take my first break, and we'll come back, and we'll do some more things, a lot of things to get to on the show today. But the first response to me, because there was a response, was it doesn't matter how often the thing is said or how many people believe it. It matters that somebody does. That was basically the first response back is, I'm not even going to respond to your request to prove that this is being said a lot. If one MAGA person said it, that's enough for me to indict everybody that I don't agree with. What if I played by those rules? What if James Tallarico was the option I chose? And I'm sure a lot of us in Texas will definitely start choosing this option to be like, well, he said this insane thing. So all of you have to be pieces of crap. Not just insane, not just maybe idiots. You also have to be evil incarnate and pieces of, bleep. That is the sentiment. That's the message. And I thought it was so amazing to interact with someone who described or demonstrated so easily to me all the reasons that, and this is dark to say it this way, Charlie Kirk got killed. They can't tolerate the discussion, and that's a problem. The idiots who call into this radio station that want to yell and scream stuff on the opposite side of the aisle and that Chris X and others hang up on, they don't want to have a discussion. They never want to talk. They just want to say their side, assume whatever you think, and then at any point that you actually do disagree with them, call you a racist, a sexist, a terrible, whatever else, and then move on. It's a shame. It's harming our country more than anything else is our inability to even have a conversation and to walk away from it going, yeah, I totally disagree with you. I kind of think you're a moron, but I'm not going to want you to be harmed. I'm not going to wish any evil upon you because that's not the goal of this. That's not the Democratic message to their side of the aisle. You know it. I know it. And I just thought it was interesting that I got to experience it after a pretty long day of doing radio stuff. But all right, we're going to take a break. A lot coming up. This is the Craig Collins Show officially every Monday through Friday right here on KSEV, KGBC, the voice of Texas, baby.
Listen carefully to rule number 1. Never go up against the IRS alone. They're cracking down, freezing bank accounts, garnishing paychecks, canceling passports. Even your home or business could be at risk. But here's what they don't tell you. The IRS has powerful tax relief programs that could save you thousands if you qualify. That's why smart people call Optima Tax Relief, America's #1 tax resolution firm. Nobody knows these programs like the experts at Optima. Their team of tax attorneys and licensed professionals have resolved over $2 billion in tax debt for people just like you. The IRS is not stopping, so don't wait. And don't take them on alone. For tax help you need, for tax help you can trust. Call Optima today for a free consultation.
Call 800-780-3599. 800-780-3599. 800-780-3599.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack. Sure, you can post your job to some job board, but then all you can do is hope the right person comes along. Which is why you should try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. It finds them for you. Its powerful technology identifies people with the right experience and actively invites them to apply to your job. You get qualified candidates fast. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you what you're looking for. The needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free. At ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter.com/free.
ZipRecruiter. If you have roof problems, you can sure see them when it rains. This is Deb Tejada from Tejas Roofing. If you see a leak, call me immediately. 281-251-0304. I'll send over the Tejas Roof Repair truck.
That truck has everything our experienced crew needs to fix your roof, right then and there.
The Tejas Roofing crew has been working together fixing leaky roofs for 15 years.
It's not a pretty truck, but it has everything we need to get the job done. I kind of like the way it looks.
Most roofing repairs cost less than $500. Why? Because we find the cause of the leak and repair that leak. We won't try to sell you services you don't need.
And we'll fix it right away because everything we need is in our truck.
Don't put off fixing a leaky roof. Call me at Tejas Roofing and I'll send over the truck. 281-251-0304. When you think of roofing repairs or a new roof, think Tejas Roofing, your Houston roofing company. 281-251-0304. That's Tejas Roofing, 281-251-0304.
Folks, this is a serious language alert. If you have kids, not me, it's Carville, but I feel like leaving the language is important for effect. Check this out.
You listen good, because what I'm getting ready to say is what a lot of people in this country speak for, who I speak for. And I speak for a lot of people. You hear me, you fat asshole? This is what we believe.
Holy crap.
You're right. I got Trump derangement syndrome. I hate the mother. And you know what? I don't want to get rid of it. I don't want to get better.
Yeah,
I want to get worse. I want to hate him more.
Yep.
I pray to God in heaven, God reign the righteous reign of Trump derangement syndrome. Pray for me, Lord. I'm your vessel on this earth. Pray for the people that listen to this. We want more. We want to hate the son of a so much that we can't see straight.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry about the. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. Do you see why they need the MAGA Civil War now?
Yes.
The MAGA Civil War.
Yes,
Listen to me. The fake MAGA Civil War is all they have. If they cannot cause the destruction from inside the tent, they've just given up from outside. Carville's given up any sense of sanity. Look at you. The guy's foaming at the mouth like a rabid animal.
Yes, he is. Thank you. That's Dan Bongino. This is the Craig Collins Show, KSCV, KGBC. You will notice this. I will do this quite often in which I don't use music. I bump back with clips of some other people out there in our society saying and doing things that have a lot of influence, that matter to a whole lot of people. Again, whether or not you agree or disagree, I'm sure there will be things I play that you disagree with, things that I disagree with, but that's a great take from Dan Bongino. And I'll tell you why it's so important, because he's been hammering it recently. His biggest discussion on his podcast over the last, I'd say, week or so has been trying to convince the skeptical conservative to come back to the conservative movement and vote with President Trump and people in his orbit on a lot of things, or believe in the mission. And you hear it all the time. You hear it on this station. People will call in and they'll say, I haven't seen enough. And I'll be honest with you, man. As a millennial, I am a 40-year-old lifelong conservative in a conservative family with a whole bunch of other people that have influenced what I believe about politics for a very long time. Parents, grandparents, uncles, aunts. I have a cousin who's actually took over for Bongino, nationally syndicated radio host. That's a conservative, pretty high-profile guy out there. So I've believed this for a long time. I will tell you, as someone from that camp, I am also frustrated that there haven't been a bunch more people arrested, that people haven't been hauled off and thrown in the hoosgow for the ridiculous amount of, I assume, disgusting and terrible things they have done. Whether these people are connected to Epstein, whether these people are connected to the typical versions of what I think are abuses and, just horrible stuff that happens in Washington, D.C., corruption, fraud, the Nancy Pelosi's who make millions of dollars somehow during their careers in which they're, quote, serving us or working for us, which doesn't seem to be true. All of that is true. The thing that I believe I hear from a Bongino when he says, still don't abandon the mission, is that you can be upset without foregoing the wins we need to eventually get to the place we want. And there's a great example of this. And this is an example to me. This might be an example to you. I'm not sure. I'm going to do a somewhat risky thing. I'm going to talk on this radio station, in this state, in this city, although it's a Democratic city, so I'm sure the people who don't listen to this station won't care about this, about something that I used to say a lot when I lived somewhere else. And that was that the 2020 election, although very well could have been fraudulent, was never proven fraudulent enough. And I know what happened. I know that judges throughout court cases that I think they should have at least tried, it should have at least gotten to the Supreme Court at some point, not because to any of the Democratic idiots who start yelling at the radios out there, because the case was so good the Supreme Court deserved to see it, Although I'm not saying that wasn't true. Unfortunately, I don't know. They never let us get enough of the information. They never tried the case at all. But I will tell you that the biggest thing that I thought was important about it getting to the Supreme Court was to see it on that stage, to have the discussion, to allow the American people. One of the points of the Supreme Court itself is to litigate the things that are of great interest to the American people. It's not always to litigate the thing that is the most challenging legal thing, but at least the thing that most of us care about. And so for a while on radio, I talked about national shows, the Dana Show, which I fill in on, the Chad Benson Show is another national show that I fill in on. I would make conservatives mad by saying I hadn't seen enough proof yet. And I'd get all the phone calls. You might even be tempted to do it tonight, and it's not so easy for me to answer the calls from people saying, well, did you see this? Did you see this over here, the water main that broke over here, the this, the that? I did. I understand what you're saying. It wasn't enough proof because they weren't allowing those pieces of information to grow the way they're supposed to grow into the thing that they need to be to demonstrate to us how broken the election system was. And here's the reason I'm discussing this March 10th here in Houston, Texas. It's finally happening. And I know Bongino talked about this too. It's finally occurring. The FBI is raiding places in Georgia, in Arizona, in all those, you circled it on the map and said, this is a place where I'm pretty sure the fraud is not only happening, it's poorly happening. They're doing it bad. They're doing it in a way where we can catch them, where we can expose the truth, we can get to where the lie is, and we can fix, eventually, by reacting to the problem, a whole lot of things. And the SAVE Act does a lot of this, too. And I'll tell you one other thing about this, because I'm so happy to be in Texas now. The difference between the morons in Illinois, where I used to live, and the Texans now, who are totally fine with being carded when you vote in an election, it's night and day. And it's amazing, because it's not just conservatives. Of course, it's liberals who got used to the fact, as I think 80% of Democratic voters believe, there's no problem in asking me for an ID in order to let me vote in an election. It's not a left versus right thing to the American people. It's only a thing to the people who benefit from individuals who vote illegally. And, of course, you also heard the story about the guy who's been voting illegally for a long time in this country. So it's not new. It's not rare. But the point in saying this, or the point in discussing this at all, and I believe the most valuable aspect in that discussion, is to see how easily people get used to something that's not actually hard. And then you talk to people in Illinois, and they're like, you could never ID us. There's so many people who couldn't prove that they're legally allowed to vote, but they are. And a lot of white morons would say it was black people, that they don't have IDs. And then you'd ask a black person in Chicago, and they're like, yeah, I have an ID. Why wouldn't you think I have one? That almost sounds racist, you stupid moron. But that's the kind of thing that you hear and see a lot, and it's just so amazing to get to talk to you about the experience here in Texas and the difference between one place and another place and how much more beneficial it was to actually experience the thing that people around me in Illinois said was going to be too hard, it was going to be terrible, it was going to break everything. And Bongino did talk about this. I'm not sure if I cleaned up this audio, and I know I do have a dump button in this room. I am tempted to play the Bongino audio, and he says a lot of bad things on his podcast. He says, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a break. I'm going to make sure I actually did clean up this audio, and then we're going to come back and we're going to do a little bit more. Bongino talked about the latest FBI raid. He talked about how much closer we're getting, and I believe this, and I hope you believe this, to definitive proof of election fraud, which I'll say one last thing about this before I take a break. I was blue in the face with some friends of mine maybe years ago, at least months ago, if not years ago, talking about this is one of the main reasons I think some people put Trump back in the White House. Not election fraud specifically, but the willingness that someone who was almost murdered by the political machine to go ahead and destroy it. Trump ran in it the first time. For whatever reason, the swamp didn't get as drained as he wanted it to. I don't put that on the feet of Trump as much as other people do. I don't think that the president was as to blame. I think it's really hard to drain a swamp. And I think when you go in the first time without the knowledge you need on how to put certain people in certain positions because you've never done it before, you get taken advantage of a little bit. Even President Trump did in his first term in office. That's not been true the second term. People like Pete Hegseth, people who are political outsiders, Kash Patel, these people matter to me. These people have value to me because they do things differently and they're not beholden to all the horrible, terrible, political machine stuff that other people would be beholden to because they come from the outside. But anyway, I would be blue in the face telling people that disrupting that is one of the biggest reasons that a lot of new voters, a lot of young male voters, a lot of what they call MAGA voters, which is people that really like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and care about our world being healthier and think some conservative ideals align there. A lot of religious voters, a lot of suburban voters who don't like things that happen. A lot of different people, a lot of even Hispanic voters, to be quite candid. The reason they all put Trump in office, they want this. They want that definitive proof that our broken system is in fact broken, that we know it, that you know it, and that you put it on display for the world to see. And I think that we're finally getting there. And I think that that's going to have, I know I've talked about this before, and the Saturday show is doing here, transformative impact on the midterm elections. I think that if you get the narrative, you might not get the people in handcuffs that are being thrown into jail cells, which I'd like to see both. But if you get the narrative to be indisputable, you have had a tremendous win, a win that cannot be evaluated differently. But all right, we'll take another break. We'll come back with the other Bongino audio about the scandal stuff. I have a little bit of Megyn Kelly audio I wanted to play, and maybe we'll do some regular, just out there, typical stuff that you hear. But it's 6, 7 o'clock at night, and you're driving home, and you've heard that mainstream audio 10 times, 15 times today on the station and other places. So we'll see. We'll see how much of that we play. We'll take a break. A lot more. This is the Craig Collins Show, KSEV, KGBC, the voice of Texas.
O'Hara with O'Hara & Company Real Estate. Our country's founding fathers drafted a document that is the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. To secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their powers from the consent of the governed. My friends at O'Hara & Company Real Estate, we believe we're at a precipice in time where we must take back our country. We must stand up for our freedoms or lose them forever. Please don't sit idle and let it slip away. Don't let anyone force you to do something you choose not to. As JFK said, if not us, who? If not now, when? If you're looking to buy or sell real estate, give O'Hara & Company Real Estate a call at 281-373-3393, 281-373-3393, or look us up on the web at o'harare.com. I'm Kevin O'Hara. God bless America, and God bless Texas.
Spring deals are popping up early at Lowe's. Right now, get 4 bags of Stay Green 2 cubic foot mulch for just $10. Plus, save $20 on an Ego 56-volt string trimmer, now just $199. Spring starts better when you save early. Don't miss out. Our best lineup is here at Lowe's. Valid through 3/18. Mulch offer excludes Hawaii. Selection varies by location. While supplies last.
Mattress back here in the Mac Z-Cliner. I'm recovering from surgery thanks in large part to this miracle chair, the Mac Z-Cliner. You can sit in it, you can recline in it, you can watch TV in it, you can eat in it, you can sleep in it. It goes to zero gravity position. The Mac Z-Cliner helped me recover. It also has heat and massage, a place to charge your cell phone. Come out to Gallery Furniture, buy a Mac Z-Cliner before your surgery. Gallery Furniture delivers tonight, or after your surgery, Gallery Furniture delivers tonight, and you'll sit and sleep great tonight.
Catch Chris X Radio weekdays at 4, right here on AM 700 KSEV.
Fans are furious at Bruce Springsteen over his sky-high ticket prices to his upcoming anti-Trump Freedom Concert Tour. He said everyone is welcome despite what you believe in. Floor seats are starting at $7,000 and upper deck seats start at $1,000. Apparently, it costs a lot to be this free.
Chris X Radio, weekdays 4 till 6, right here on the Voice of Texas.
Everyone knows the BBB is the Better Business Bureau, but depending on what you need, it's the Better Plumber Bureau, the Better Auto Mechanic Bureau, the Better Accountant Bureau. That's because the BBB connects people with businesses they can trust. So think of the BBB as the better check that business out first so you don't get ripped off bureau. Be smart. always look for the BBB seal because it's looking out for you. And find a better business anytime at bbb.org.
If this righteous investigation turns up evidence of voter fraud on a bigger scale than the left-wing media now pretends to put a gloss on otherwise, then that's the story of the century.
Yes, it is.
Isn't it? Just the news. Just saw this crack this morning. FBI secretly seizes election records from Arizona's largest county as the voting probe expands. Folks, this is critical. Why is the left-wing media not interested in this story? I'm just curious. If the left-wing media folks are so concerned, as they pretended to be in the Bush-Gore election and the Russia collusion hoax, about election integrity, Donald Trump stole it with the Russians. Him and Putin were smoking cigars and Playboy jackets.
Yeah, whatever. That is Bongino. There's more there. I didn't fix it, so I can't play it right now, but I'll play it later. But that is Dan Bongino talking about the giant story that I've been mentioning on the show today. That is a likelihood that we're getting closer and closer to definitive proof that election fraud definitely happened, that people did bad things, and that you care and I care and we all care, and we need to get to a place where we actually fix the problem because it's real and it's bad. It's awesome to hear more and more people have that discussion. And I will say this about this topic before we move on to some other stuff that's more mainstream and out there and basically, news of the day stuff. I will say I think this is the biggest thing to reinvigorate the voter who's disenfranchised right now. The conservative voter who doesn't think enough has happened, that's good, that they want to have happen, that they, this is the reason I put the person into office that promised change to me. And by the way, real quick, here's an aside, a different thought on this. James Tallarico here in Texas, who's a drunken moron, by my assumption. I'm not saying that he actually drinks. I'm saying that the things he says feel like they were said by your dumbest friend when he was very intoxicated. That's what Tallarico reminds me of. My biggest moron buddy who is really hammered and says things out loud that he's going to regret later. That is Tallarico in a nutshell. But anyway, he is offering one powerful thing to his voters, to his side of the aisle, and he's doing it in a way that eventually you can figure out it's false. Change. Change is one of the most powerful things. Yes, we can, from Barack Obama, as terrible as that person was while in office. It motivates people on both sides of the aisle, which is fascinating to me. And the reason it's fascinating to me, and I wonder if it's the reason it's fascinating to you, is because most of us also agree the entire system is freaking broken. The entire system is bad. I don't want to revolt and try to overthrow what the brilliant founding fathers intended to create, but I do want someone to go in there and use the system the way it was made to actually get us back to something that's much, much better, that's not as horrible and terrible as the current thing we have is. And I think that's so interesting that if you were ever looking for a connection point, let's call it a through line, let's call it we can at least agree on this version of a start to a conversation with someone politically you disagree with on a crap ton of other stuff, that's it. That we all want change, and that one side of the aisle, for some reason, thinks that change comes from the people who most broke the thing. The people who've done the most damage to the intention of what was created by the founding fathers, for some reason, half of our country, or not quite half of it, I think decently less than half, would like to trust those same people to be the arbiters of something quite different, to be, the catalyst to change that they definitely don't want to be. It's insane. But all right, let's do this. This is Caroline Leavitt having a conversation about the SAVE Act, the White House press secretary. Really, really good at her job. She's uniquely good at this. I know President Trump has even commented on her lips sometimes, which I know it's weird. I know that seems weird. I don't actually get all that offended by it because, yeah, there's sometimes a distractingness to the way she speaks, and then you're looking at her face a lot, and you notice some things that might be different about her. But anyway, let's play a little bit of this audio because this is, right now, President Trump's position as far as the SAVE Act is concerned that is impacting what happens with the Texas Senate, meaning who he endorses. Paxton has said several times that he would like the SAVE Act passed. President Trump has now said, let's get the SAVE Act passed, because if we don't pass that, I'm not endorsing someone in Texas. And the reason why is because we're worried Cornyn, just like you'd be worried about a lot of other crap with Cornyn, isn't going to do the thing that his side of the aisle wants him to do, that he's going to trip at the goal line, fumble the football intentionally, whatever the word might be. So this amount of pressure in this way right now does make sense. I don't like that. I think the belief is that if the SAVE Act gets passed, then Trump will come out and endorse Cornyn. I don't think that's the right decision. As much as I think Paxton is a tremendously flawed candidate and Wesley Hunt was a better choice, I'll die on that hill. I won't go any further than that. I'll just say that to me right now, getting the SAVE Act passed in whatever way you do it, tremendously important to the integrity of our elections. Here's Caroline Levitt about that, if it actually plays.
On another matter here at home, President Trump is urging Congress to pass the Save America Act, one of the most critical pieces of legislation in our nation's history. The Save America Act is overwhelmingly popular with all Americans because each provision is rooted in common sense.
Sure.
The Save America Act has 5 simple requirements as requested by the President of the United States.
By the way, before I continue to play this, the reason I'm doing this is because a lot of people on the left especially want to pretend this is a hard act to understand. It is not.
Number 1, voters have to show ID to cast a ballot in an American election.
Good.
Very simple. 90% of Americans, including more than 80% of Democrat voters, agree with this. Number 2, the Save America Act will require all voters to show proof of citizenship in order to register to vote in American elections. Again, this is popular and rooted in common sense. Only American citizens have the right to vote in American elections. But after Joe Biden and the Democrats allowed tens of millions of illegal aliens into our country, it's more important than ever to ensure that only American citizens are registering to vote on our nation's voter rolls, and Congress needs to pass this. Number 3, the Save America Act abolishes the incredibly unsecure practice of universal mail-in ballots, which throw the door wide open for fraud. Importantly, the Save America Act maintains exceptions for Americans to use mail-in ballots like for illness, disability, military, or travel reasons.
All right, I'm going to stop it right there. That's the one that gets a lot of Democrats real mad. And yet the thing she said last, most important, that there would still be exceptions. We're not precluding military men and women who are not here in this country, serving our country somewhere else from voting. We're not stopping people with disabilities, with illnesses, travel reasons, which gets sketchy, but it is definitely a thing. We're not doing that. But we do think that mail-in balloting, and if you rationally think about this, it's hard to argue with it, is a conduit to a bunch of fraud. And actually, I used to make this argument, and I'll play the rest of what she's going to say in a second, to anybody that told me there was never fraud, that fraud is ridiculous, and how dare you say that it's possible at all. Isn't there a chance, this is how I would do it, isn't there a chance that in the 2020 election, some crazy liberal mom got all the ballots for her family sent to her house? She's got a couple kids in college. Who knows who else in the family is connected to that address? But they all showed up there, and instead of giving the ballots to the other people in her life, she just filled them all out and hardcore voted for Biden, who was running a campaign in his basement, and then sent them in. That's voter fraud. I know it sounds ridiculous to try, well, not ridiculous to this audience, ridiculous to some to try to go that road, but that is fraud. That's not, I stuffed the ballots with dead people voting or fake people voting or whatever else that we do think that also a lot of people believe is happening. But it's a very simplistic version of it. And it was amazing to listen to Democrats reject the ability for that to be a thing. Like, no, none of us would ever do that. All right, let's listen to the rest of the explanation of the very uncomplicated Save America Act.
The bipartisan 2005 report of the Commission on Federal Election Reform, chaired by, of all people, former President Jimmy Carter and former Secretary of State James Baker, concluded that, quote, absentee ballots remain the largest source of potential voter fraud. Correct. And it is time for Congress to finally address this. Yes. Number 4, the Save America Act permanently bans men from competing in women's sports. President Trump...
By the way, awesome. Not at all about securing our elections, but deserves to be added in there because somehow we're actually debating
signed a landmark executive order upholding the promise of Title IX and ending this dangerous and unfair practice. But now it's time for Congress to codify this into law.
Yeah.
Number 5, the Save America Act bans transgender mutilation surgery for children.
Right.
Again, President Trump signed a common sense.
Now, again, crazy people, Tallarico among them, will tell you that this is somehow bad. It's not connected to voter fraud. How dare you try to force it in there and make it a thing that people pass? And yet, she said the mutilation of children, the permanent damage to a child's body that should not happen until that person is at least, I hate saying it this way, until that person is at least an adult to make an informed decision on their own about what they want to do to potentially irreversibly harm their body. But certainly not something we should be doing to kids. That any moral society could tell you, with compassion, by the way, I feel horrible for someone who says, I'm trapped in the wrong body, that I'm a woman, but I'm a man. I feel terrible for anybody that would say that out loud. I'm not going to pretend I understand what they're saying, or I'm going to pretend as though changing their body is actually the solution to the problem they just articulated out loud, the mental health challenge that they're facing. But I would say that when it comes to kids, let's at least pump the brakes until you're 18. We do this on a wide variety of other things. Why not at least do it here? That's a part of the SAVE Act. It makes Democrats very mad, but it's simply common sense in the ability to do something that I think is morally right. That is, because there are, I will say this last thing, and Trump did a good job at the State of the Union in demonstrating this. There are people who regret transitioning. They're detransitioners. There's a name for it within the LGBTQ whatever community, and they are shouted down. People scream at them within their own side and how terrible they are, how bad they are in discussing their existence, because it allows a conservative to have an opinion that does seem, foundationally to be compassionate, that you want to prevent that. They hate that we can look like nice people. And through the discussion, the real discussion of people who regret changing their body, especially as children, which do exist, it allows me to say on the air, and I mean this wholeheartedly, I'm not using it as an excuse, but I mean it wholeheartedly, I want to prevent that. I don't want that to ever be a thing where a young person makes a horrible decision that mom and dad seem to support for whatever reason that might be, and then can't go back. And there are actually a lot of people who detransition, again, that's what it's called, commit suicide. And so they talk all the time about the suicide numbers, the self-harm numbers in people that aren't allowed to go from whatever sex they were born to whatever sex they think they are. But there's something else about that. The people who actually harm themselves after doing the surgery and it not being good enough, it not changing whatever the problem was in their mind, because this isn't actually a solution to a problem that is quite a bit different than what people want to say it is. All right, we got one last break. We'll come back. We'll do a few things after this. But this is the Craig Collins Show, KSEV. We're going to do the quick four-ish, which is definitely me ripping off a Dana Lash thing. She does the quick five, so I fill in for her nationally. I figured I could steal this from her. It's the quick four-ish, 4+ topics usually that are silly, that are off the beaten path, that are not the serious stuff that we often talk about on shows like this. And we're going to do a palate cleanser, and I think it's going to be brought to you by a tequila company, El Bandito Yankee Tequila. I got some buddies there that want to sponsor what essentially is forget the news, do a shot, talk about some fun stuff. That's basically the idea. That's coming up in just a bit. Again, the Craig Collins Show, KSEV, KGBC, the voice of Texas.
Dan Patrick from Lewis Flory and Ability Tree Experts.
Spring is here and summer just around the corner, which means it's time to deep root fertilize your trees in addition to spraying for insects and disease. Let Ability Trees help maintain their value and repair all damage. Fed and prune tree will be less susceptible to wind damage and uprooting. Caring for the beautiful and valuable trees on your property that you can't replace should be done by experts. And the experts I use, it's very clear. It's Ability Tree Experts in Lewis Flory.
My friend for over 40 years.
Gosh, this guy is the pro when it comes to taking care of trees. You know, pruning is important for the health of your trees, and pruning limits resistance to spring storms and allows the sun and fresh air into the canopy. Trees can be in distress several months without showing any signs, so don't wait to protect your investment at 281-441-4179, 281-441-4179, or visit their website at abilitytrees.com. Right now, Ability Trees is giving a deep root feeding with every tree prune. Ability Trees, Houston's leading tree care professional.
Confidence is knowing you're ready to handle whatever comes your way. That's what it feels like to take on your workday with Cintas. They make sure your AEDs are up to date, your fire extinguishers are tested and inspected, your floor mats are cleaned and delivered, and your workwear looks good, feels good, and is freshly laundered with a Cintas Apparel Plus program. So are you ready to take on today? Visit Cintas.com and get ready for the workday.
We got a call late New Year's Eve. A dad's garage door spring just snapped. He had big plans the next day and didn't know what to do. Hi, I'm Tommy Mello, owner of Garage Door. And you need help? We're the ones who show up. From repairs to upgrades, call Garage Door Doctor.
Dan Patrick for my friend Louis Flory and Ability Tree Experts.
Spring is here and summer just around the corner, which means it's time to deep root fertilize your trees in addition to spraying for insects and disease. Let Ability Trees help maintain their value and repair all damage. Fed and pruned tree will be less susceptible to wind damage and uprooting. Caring for the beautiful and valuable trees on your property that you can't replace should be done by experts. And the experts I use, it's very clear. It's Ability Tree Experts and Louis Flory, my friend for over 40 years. Gosh, this guy is the pro when it comes to taking care of trees. You know, pruning is important for the health of your trees, and pruning limits resistance to spring storms.
Rain-X wipers are the #1 wiper blades in America. That means all kinds of drivers choose Rain-X. Big drivers in small cars choose Rain-X. Small drivers in big cars choose Rain-X. Drivers with long hair and short commutes choose Rain-X. Drivers with short hair and long commutes choose Rain-X. Drivers with pets on board, babies on board, and bored babies on board choose Rain-X. Basically, drivers who love a clear view of the road all choose Rain-X wipers, the #1 wiper blades in America.
This is the Craig Collins Show, KSEV, KGBC. Just a few minutes left with you. Thrilled to be with you on a Tuesday. We will do a conversation with some people, I think, from the rodeo later on this week. But one more shout out to the Houston Rodeo, the 2026 version of it, because it's been a blast to be going to get to experience for the first time as a newer transplant to this city, to this state. A guy who lived in Illinois a long time, that's me. And then is from the East Coast. Never been to a rodeo. Had been closer to horses and cows before because my wife actually grew up on a farm from Mexico. So I visited her farm. I've been around livestock, so that's not completely new. But by and large, it's mostly new for my life. So that's been fun. The events have been great. I think they've been putting on an incredible show. And then the concerts were good last week. They're better this week. Tonight is good. Tomorrow is very good with Creed. Chris Stapleton is on Thursday. My wife is so excited for Chris Stapleton, through the roof excited for that show specifically. Kelly Clarkson is on Friday. There's a bunch of things. So hopefully you're going to go out to the rodeo. If you go there, I am doing this whenever you see me. I walk around. I have a mic with a KSEV flag, and I ask you for your 7-word rodeo review. We are KSEV 700, so I want I'm recording a bunch of these. I'm going to put up a video and play some audio of it. But the 7-word rodeo review, a lot of people have had really positive things to say. All right, let's do a quick 4-ish. These are 4 silly stories that you probably don't hear a whole lot of places out there, but I do it as a palate cleanser, and I think very soon it'll officially be brought to you. I'm unofficially bringing it to you by El Bandito Yankee Tequila. They are the sponsor of some other things I do out there in the world of radio, and it's great. Very smooth, very tasty tequila. They're also celebrating National Badass Day. And so I think I'll have a conversation with somebody tomorrow about that because apparently that's a holiday today. But yes, they're absolutely going to be celebrating it. And so I think it's pretty cool that that's a thing that's out there. So I think you're going to hear that interview tomorrow. I'm going to set that up. But anyway, have you been eating cereal wrong your entire life? This is a real story. It's out there in media. Etiquette experts say you've been doing this wrong. The proper method uses a spoon and a fork to keep breakfast neat and splash-free. I'm going to tell you that if I saw any moron whip out a fork along with a spoon to eat cereal in front of me, I would ask if they were mentally okay. I would actually ask if they're a Democrat and if they need help with something, if they need to be sent somewhere, if someone needs to come in to check on them. But the eating experts do this with pizza. They say you should eat it with a fork and a knife. And that's horrible, especially to anybody from the East Coast, which is me. But this is also true for the eating cereal. Apparently, they're saying we're doing it wrong. And no, My answer is I'm never doing it the way you're saying, because the way you're saying makes me look like a serial killer. That's what I would think of if I saw a spoon and a fork being used to maneuver cereal onto a spoon full of milk. It's just wrong across the board. Terrible. 33% of people say it's rude to leave a party without saying goodbye to a host. That's another story out there that I saw that I thought was pretty funny. It's called the Irish goodbye. I'm not being racist to say it. It's simply true. That's what they call it, the Irish goodbye. And so, yeah, I love it. I think it's great. I think it's the kind of thing that we should all do a whole bunch of, that there's no reason not to do, because, again, when you do something like that, you get to leave, and you don't have to deal with the awkwardness of someone trying to say goodbye to you while still hosting a party. I think it's absolutely the correct way to go in the world of just bouncing. But other people are saying that this is rude, that this is wrong, that you shouldn't do this, and I think those people are crazy. And then a couple other quick stories. I know we're running out of time here on the show. A man named literally anybody else is running for mayor in a place here in Texas, and this is getting more and more news. His actual legal name that he had changed so that he could run for multiple offices, this is in North Richland Hill, Texas, is literally anybody else. He is 37 now. He is trying to compete against all types of other politicians for other kinds of roles. I find that to be a hilarious decision by this person in their human life, that they are running for this office, that they are trying to be a literally anybody else candidate because all the candidates are terrible. That's basically the message, and I agree with them on that. All right, that's the show. That's it. That's everything. Thrilled to have you with us. KSEV, KGBC, the voice of Texas, the Craig Collins Show. See you tomorrow, everybody.
You're listening to the voice of Texas, AM 700 KSEV Tomball and AM 1540 KGBC Galveston. News this hour from Town Hall. I'm Keith Peters in Washington. Tensions are high at sea near Iran.
Iran has effectively stopped tankers from using the Strait of Hormuz, which carries 20% of the world's oil. On social media, President Trump said the U.S. had completely destroyed 10 inactive Iranian mine-laying vessels, and there would be more to follow. A video clip was posted by Energy Secretary Chris Wright, claiming the Navy helped an oil tanker through the Strait of Hormuz. This is White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt.
And I can confirm that the U.S. Navy